Hey everyone, welcome to the Biz Sister Show. I'm Wendy Babcock, your host, your Biz Sister. And today, only one of my guests is here right now, but that's quite all right. Let me bring her up. Her name's Tina Hollis. Hi, Tina.
Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. We're waiting on Jeremy and Monica, but while we do that, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, Tina Hallis, founder of The Positive Edge. I work to help organizations, people shift their thinking, be more positive, and apply all the science of positive psychology.
Wow, that sounds like a lot. Hi, Jeremy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Sorry for my
Awesome.
slight tardiness there.
That's quite all right. Hey, you're here. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
um, so why don't you just introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Jeremy Nicolaitis. I am the founder and CEO of Golden Octopillar, which is a consulting and coaching company. So I've got a huge background in the film business. So I've been in the film business for over 20 years, both on the creative side and the business development side. And so I decided last year that now that we can implement so many of these proven strategies and growth frameworks from inside Hollywood, we can now take this outside of Hollywood and use them for all businesses. So now I'm on a mission to double the size of 1,000 businesses in 5 years using Hollywood's growth strategies.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. I think what both of you do is just so fascinating to me. Um, so let's talk quick because obviously this month we're talking about the speaking industry, and I think marketing goes hand in hand with that. You know, marketing yourself, and of course everything Tina that you're doing that goes hand in hand with mindset and how you put yourself out there and being on stage. So, give us some ideas about what the speaking industry has looked like for you, and I'll let Tina go first.
Yeah, it's been interesting how just trying to think of how many in-person events I've had in the last 6 months. A handful,
Yeah,
but obviously lots of virtual events before that. And honestly, it did get quieter. I think people were trying to figure out what's going to happen. Should they try to do a plan for in-person? Should they try a hybrid approach? And with all the new technology that's been coming out there, I think there's so many options.
yeah, I agree. And I was really hesitant to do virtual in the beginning. For some reason, I just thought, oh my gosh, the audience isn't going to, get it. I'm not going to get that feedback. I like to be really like kind of educating and as or not educating, entertaining as well as like engaging. And I thought, how am I going to do that virtually? Like, how's that going to look? What has it been like for you, Jeremy? Are you speaking on stages and stuff too? Or are you more just virtual, like with coaching and
Yeah, it's all been virtual. And you know what? I like it because you can do more, right? You can get to
yeah,
more people. I think one of the only really downside when I think about it is for the participant is the interaction that they get that isn't about us, right? The interaction with themselves, right? And there's been some really great events that are breaking off into these little social rooms for people to network and whatnot, which is really cool. And so
yeah.
I think it's both, but yeah, absolutely, it's been virtual.
Yeah, and once I came around to it, it definitely, like, changed the game. Now I almost don't wanna go outside of my home, which might be a bad thing too at the same time, but it's cool because now, like I hope Monica joins us at some point because Monica's doing these, like, international conferences, so I've gotten to speak
Mm.
in Australia, and she just did one in London recently, and, so it's an international speaking gig, but without the jet lag. So,
Right.
you know, so that's been kinda fun. So, we've been talking all month about the speaking industry and usually about like taking the stage, but let's look at the marketing side of it this week, and how you're putting yourself out there and what does that look like virtual? So whoever wants to jump in.
I'm happy to kick it off if you want, Tina.
Sure.
So for me, I'm taking things from inside Hollywood, right? And what can we do? Like, what am I looking to model? And so, one of the films I worked on last year, maybe I finished at the beginning of this year. I don't know about you guys, but this whole COVID thing and working from home, my whole concept of time has shifted. And
Yes.
so I don't know if like something was 2 months ago or 2 years ago, but I finished Dune, right? I was working on Dune. Dune's come out, and so any kind of big movie or big TV show, what do you see? Like when we see from Hollywood, what happens? Like you see, a teaser comes out, a little trailer, a little clip, and then a longer clip. But then when we really get into it, right before it's about to come out, we start seeing all the talent show up on, the late night shows and the morning
Mm,
shows and different shows throughout the day. And they're on the radio and they're being interviewed for the newspaper and the magazines. And so if we take that same thing, we can now do that for ourselves, right? Because people have podcasts and virtual events and shows, and we can do all this. And so now we can get in front of other people's audiences, right? Just the same way. I don't have to go on Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon, right? I can go on Wendy's shows, right? And I can provide value and talk about things. And so it's the same thing. And so we can go in front of go on podcasts and talk about it. We can go live on Instagram. We can go live on YouTube. We can go, we could be on blogs, and then we could take those clips, those things that we're talking about, like right now, we could take little audio clips and sound clips and pictures, and we can start putting that all over our social media, and it just blasts the internet with it, right? To make sure that we're
wow.
findable. But when people do find us, because we have these conversations, we're also approachable and we seem normal, and it's cool. So that's the way I look at it.
True. And I just got out of that. Like, if you do have a Jimmy Fallon hookup, hey, let me know. Um,
Right. I'm not
but
saying
no,
I would
you're
turn it down or anything.
right, right. But you're absolutely right because in I don't know about you, Tina, but for me, like whenever I was looking for speaking gigs before and getting on stages, it was always about the emails, the phone calls and all of that work. But really what I like about what Jeremy's saying is getting out on podcasts and getting in front of people and talking about what you're doing, you're kind of setting yourself up as the expert. And so honestly, I think it's gonna kind of reverse engineer the speaking industry because people are gonna start coming to you because they've already heard you speak. They've seen these sound bits, these clips of you out there speaking, you know? What are your thoughts on that, Tina?
Yeah, I think, when people can understand your style, your energy, kind of feel like they know you and what to expect, I think it's, people really want to make sure it's a good fit, right? What is their audience expecting? What kind of energy, how much entertainment versus content? And when we can get out there and help people get to know us in a variety of ways, I think that can make it so much easier for people to decide if, is this person a good fit?
Right. And I think now because it is so virtual, it's become more the norm now. People
Mhm.
don't have to go and see you speak at some event to see if you're any good, you know? And now, like Jeremy said, you can be on podcasts and things like that that really showcase your personality. You can kind of tell if someone's going to be kind of easy to work with or if they're going to be kind of an asshole. You can kind of tell that, you know? Like I heard this guy in this podcast, like he has great content, but man, what a jerk. you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
And it's okay to turn people away, right? I mean, there's more than enough people out there for all of us, for us all to connect with people, and it's okay not to connect with somebody because we're not going to connect with everybody, and we shouldn't try to connect with everybody, right? And it helps when get all this stuff out there. We're all talking and these sound bites and all these clips. It also for the businesses, when people look up a business, they now look different than the others. If you integrate speaking into how you market your business, and you could do 2 shows a month, right? You can be on 2 shows a month and then get all this content. And then when people look you up, because they're going to look you up, right? If they're like for some product or service, what are they going
Mhm.
to see? Are they going to see somebody who's out there, who's sharing value, who's personable and likable? And if for all intents and purposes, it's the same product and service, well, they're going to go with you because they like and trust you, right? and
Right.
and you don't have to price your product based on other people. You can price it on the real value and not turn it into a commodity and just race to the bottom because everybody's just undercutting on price, right?
Right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. In the show that I had met you on, Jeremy, was our mutual friend Vince Warnock, and you did talk a bit about like the Hollywood standard and how can you talk a little bit about that? Because I'm still fascinated with like working above your business stuff as far as like marketing and how to be successful. Because I think that's really fascinating.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. When it was like one of these statements of, the people who control everything in Hollywood, like the real masterminds in Hollywood, aren't in the trenches making movies and TV shows, right? They're overseeing everything. And so how do we do that, right? And that was kind of one of the frameworks that I help them implement in, new clients and customers, like get that into their business right away, because we don't want to work in our, like I used to have this thing on top of my computer that said, don't work in your business, work on your business, right?
Hmm.
Which is true in the beginning. You're doing a lot of work, you're working on your business, but you need to get to the point where you're working over your business, where your business is in service for you. And how do you do that? You have to have you have to have actual metrics that you can track, right? Because in the film business, we track everything, right?
Right.
Film editors have databases, producers have databases, coordinators have databases. They all have all this databases. At the beginning of a show, we come together and connect all of our databases, right? So that we can have all this information, because we have thousands of people working all around the world, working on thousands of shots. And how do you track that? And how does the person above, so if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, how do you then know everything? If you're collecting this data, people on your team or you're doing it, and it comes up to you, you can now look at a quick glance and say, I need to focus here, right?
Mm.
This is where the focus needs to be. All this is working over here. So I don't need to take my time or my energy and worry about that right now. This quarter is all about this. And this is what we're going
Right.
to focus. And this is how we work over the business, right? And then we put things in place to get it done underneath us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and, the funny thing is I'm not the numbers person. That's something I need to hire out. Tina, are you more of the numbers person? I think with your science background. No, I figured you'd be more the numbers person.
Yeah, no, I was a bucket chemist. The science part for me, the analytical details, I'm more of a big picture concepts kind of a person. Yes.
Yeah. So how does that play then in for you as far as like your business and working in, on, or above your business? How does that like kind of helped you with your background?
Yeah, what I find is, for example, when I wrote my book, I wrote a book called Sharpen Your Positive Edge. And I knew I was going to be terrible at the details. I knew that to hold myself accountable was going to be a huge mistake. So I actually hired a project manager to help me. And it was hilarious, right? Because we'd have these conversations. It's like, well, what are you going to do in the next week? And what's your deadline? And I'm like, oh, I don't want to have to. And she's like, that's what you hired me for. We want deadlines. We want details. And so it was so helpful. And sure enough, I met my deadlines and she was awesome. So I think it's knowing your weaknesses and strengths and then being willing to hire and get help with those weakness areas.
Yeah, that or, if you can't hire somebody, you need to learn the information how to do that. So for me, obviously, Jeremy's going to be a big asset for me coming up as far as like learning how to do that, because that is my weakness. Like, put me on the stage, I'll talk all day long. I can find the speaking gigs, like I know how to do that spot. It's all that tracking, going through like, okay, how many emails were open this month? Like, that is not my strong suit.
Yeah,
You
and it's not mine either, but that's where we can put people in place. Like you said, you
Right.
hire somebody to do that. So really at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, whatever that cadence is, you're looking at this information. It's a live spreadsheet, right? And so somebody else can be inputting that data so that you look at it. Because I'm the same way. I'm like a big picture person. Like I want to look, I don't want to be so deep in the trenches, because I don't find that fun for me. I like to be talking to everybody and working with everybody and putting all these ideas together and putting the team together and executing, right? And so it really even comes down to the end. It's color coded, right? Like you have your target and you have your actuals, and based on the difference between those, it could be red, green, yellow, right? Like what are we doing? And so we just look at the red. The red is where we need to look, right? That's where we're going to focus. It's green. I don't even need to look at it, right? and
Right.
then and then you figure out the tools and tactics to achieve whatever that message is telling you, right? And put the team in place.
Yeah, and it's great when you hear someone like that, like, break it down that way, because otherwise it just seems like, I've got squirrel brain, so it's like I've got all these squirrels running around up here, and it's like, how do I organize these little squirrels and get them into the right, like, color sections so I know, like, what I'm looking at? And I think that just comes down to, like, organization and, like you said, if you have to hire somebody like Tina did, which is I think is brilliant, because if you know your limitations and you can find someone to help you with that, like, it truly is a game changer in business, whether you're on stages speaking or whatever it is you're doing. Knowing those things, if you can't keep those things in alignment or, keep those things organized, then yeah, it's definitely gonna be a a
Yeah.
longer, road to success, I think.
Well, you want to get to that point as quickly as possible, right? Where you're only doing the things that you love to do, right? And
Right.
that's when you're working over your business, because everything else is operating for you. That's the goal. We just try to get there as quickly as possible.
Exactly, exactly. So, we talked about, like, getting on podcasts and stuff. How have you guys have Tina, have you been on podcasts too besides, like, shows like this? Have you been kind of searching for those outlets?
I have in the past. I haven't been doing a lot of that recently, but I definitely have in the past, and I think they're so fun. I just, I love it when you can just start getting kind of deep into the fun discussion and comparing notes and sharing strategies. So yeah, overall I find it just fun to do. It's like one of the, when there's so many choices for marketing, right? There's so many different ways we can create awareness. And so why not, experiment, try something, and then if it's fun, do more of that. So
Right.
that's, I think, the key: experiment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So Jeremy, so like for you then, with getting on podcasts, has it been, I mean, you have a great background for obviously for someone who's doing a show. Look what he's done. I mean, so that's a great thing. So it's
Right.
probably been a little bit easier for some people to get on podcasts than others. But do you feel like kind of anyone can get on a podcast?
I do. There are so many types of podcasts out there. Like I always joke, like, we used to joke in the back in the past of like underwater basket weaving was like, this elective you'd take in school. It's like nothing or like, but like there probably is a podcast out there for underwater basket weaving. Like there's everything you can think of, right? Um, and it is easier for me because of the Hollywood stuff, right? Say, oh, it's easy to draw attention
Yeah.
and get in there and do it. And I like it. It's kind of like like a comedian before they have a big show, right? They're gonna have a big show. Maybe they're gonna be like Dave Chappelle and have a big Netflix thing. But any big comedian, they're gonna go on tour, right? And they're gonna go to like the smaller comedy clubs and they're gonna test their material. And I think podcasts are great for that
Oh,
because
yeah.
you have this idea of things you want to talk about, but you have to go talk to people about it, right? And so you may be getting ready for a big event where you can be on stage talking in front of 10,000 people, but you want to kind of test your material. I think a podcast is great for that. And you get that instant feedback from the person you're talking to, but then also if people have questions or comments, you see that kind of thing come later, if they're putting it online, right? And then over time you refine it. So it's really helped me just refine my message, and every time I got a new one, I go out and do it. But I love lives. Like I just love going live. Like let's just go, let's do it. Let's like, just start talking, and then also just providing value. I think it's so nice. Podcasts are one of those things that really helped me in the past, and
Mhm.
so it's kind of like I like to do the same thing. So sometimes I have a personal agenda, but I always tell everybody at the end of the day, it's about providing value. So
Right.
what do you want to do? Like, what's good for your audience? When do you want to do it? When's it going to come out? And I like that aspect about it too.
Yeah, and I love the idea of even testing your material because sometimes if you're coming out with something new, when I started Slam networking, like I had to be able to talk about networking and why it was. And so it kind of helps you get your thoughts together without being on that big stage,
Right,
talking in front of lots of people and having like this whole big presentation where it's nonstop talking, where podcasts is that back and forth. It gives you that, stop and start question and answer platform so you can kind of really get your stuff together about what you're talking about
right.
to make sure you are ready to get on that big stage. So, you know, I have found a lot of help for myself, getting on podcasts and talking about it. So when someone does ask me, I'm not like, oh, well, it's, well, you know?
Yeah. When I first started, man, you guys, this is so funny. When I first started going on podcasts, I did earlier this year. I think I did like 25 podcasts in 2 months. And when I first started like lining them up, I was kind of nervous, and I was like, I got to make sure I have my talking points and I'm ready. And around my whole screen, I just had post-it notes of like talking points and different things. So like if I forgot or it's there, and like I was so nervous. And now it's just like I look into the show, I do the like I check out the show, I see what they're about, what they're talking about, and you just go.
Yeah, I've definitely become a wing it girl. And that's why I do
Uh-huh.
prefer going live. And even when I record somebody on my podcast, we record on Thursday, I slap the intro and outro on it, and bam, it goes up the next day.
I love that.
It's this way I don't have to sit there and, like, I don't try to make it perfect, I don't have to cut in and out of it. It's like, "No, this is what it is." I like everything to be kind of real and raw, and so when I
Hmm.
had the idea for this show, then, of course, I'm like, we're just gonna go live. I'm just gonna get people on here, we're just gonna have a conversation. People have never met before, Tina, meet Jeremy, Jeremy, meet Tina, we're gonna have a conversation, you
I
know?
love it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, so for you then, Tina, so who is your main audience when you're speaking? Who is your main audience that you're kind of? I don't want to say targeting. That's really not the right word when you're a speaker, but who are you mostly talking with?
When it almost feels like I have two audiences. I feel like I have the people who and I'm sure it's probably similar for you too, or maybe all of us. It's like I have the audience of the people who are going to hire me, right? Maybe HR people, executives, association
Yeah.
committees, and then there's the people in the audience that I so want to leave messages with. I want them to remember what they learned and to use it. And so finding different ways to reach them and make sure that there's tangible takeaways, but also physical takeaways, whether it's, a postcard, a book, or, something fun and silly. And I think, when it took me the longest time, honestly, when I started my business, because I kept thinking, well, who do I market to? Who do I market to? And then you have to realize that, the marketing is the purpose of getting hired. So you really need to target that. But you can still then have, like on your website, you can have resources for your audience, and you just, drive them towards what is relevant for them. Um, but I think a lot of speakers struggle with that.
I and I totally relate with that because even for me, getting out on stage is, I was speaking with somebody else's topic. I know it's Will Bowen's Complaint Free World, and that's still my main topic that I love to get out there and talk about. But same with you. It's the associations, the corporate people, those are the ones hiring me, for their employees or for the association. But yeah, you want to reach the people that, aren't paying for you to be on that stage. You want to reach the ones that they're trying to really help. And so what does that look like? And so yeah, the marketing is different then.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to like now I do the slam networking. So my audience has shifted. So I do kind of have two audiences. I've got the ones I'm speaking to for complaint free, then I'm having, more of the entrepreneur, the service-based entrepreneurs, the consultants, the coaches that are joining my networking. So it's kind of gets confusing, you know. So Jeremy, what advice would you give to somebody like who does have different audiences? Like is there a way to like consolidate that?
I think the first piece of advice is that it's okay, right? That it's okay. We can have different avatars. I think there's been such like this campaign of, the riches are in the niches, and you got to niche down, and you got to have like one person. But I think it's okay to have multiple avatars. Obviously, you don't want to have too many, but
Right.
maybe but if we're talking about the people in the audience, right? We're not talking. We've got the people versus the companies, right? Well, maybe we're talking to the people so that one day they are a company, right? And how
Mm,
do we kind of have this path, right? This value ladder, right? We talk about, Russell Brunson, he's always talking about the sales funnel, right? Because he's got click funnels and it's all about that. But at first it's like, wait, this guy's like, you got to just do this one thing, right? When you look at his stuff. But then if you look at it, even him and his strategy, it starts small, right? He's got a little challenge to like, hey, build your first funnel and start selling something. And you work your way up until like you're in his inner circle making millions of dollars a year, right? And so
wow.
I think in I think it's first, it's okay, right? It's okay to have the different avatars and different customers and different people we're targeting. But for me, it's just trying to have a path so that one leads to the other and leads to the other. And it's okay if people exit out at different points, but your star clients could go all the way through, right? But it's
Right.
okay to start at the top. Like we want the high ticket, we want the big companies, but how do we
Right.
just work it in? So that's the way I look at it.
Right.
And sometimes it's okay just to do a one-off thing that you think is cool that will help people and be like, hey, I'm gonna make this offer. And it's gonna be for this type of person. I'm gonna market to that type of person and I'm gonna see if it works.
Yeah. And, I struggle with that bringing people all the way through because with complaint free, it's not my topic. I'm speaking kind of on behalf. I'm like the only other complaint free speaker, but I don't have a program to sell.
Mhm.
I can sell Will's book and the bracelets and all that go with it, but I don't have this like, and that's what he's building that to take people through this whole program and stuff. So for me, during the pandemic is when I had to switch gears a little bit. I'm like, okay, I need to have something of my own so I can bring somebody through that journey. And so that's where slam networking came in then. So then I thought, okay, so I want to get them into this thing and they can buy the journals and now, I can speak on it. And, so it was more of a customer journey because I kept hearing everyone talk about that. I'm like, I don't have that, you
Yeah.
know? So that was
Yeah.
a
Worse.
struggle for me.
Yeah. I kind of went backwards, and maybe a lot of people go backwards, but it's like the big consulting jobs from the film business, right? Where I'm working with companies that do, 10, 15, $20 million a year, and they want to grow, and how do they get more, right? And then I was like,
Right.
well, but I want to take stuff outside of Hollywood. So then I started this fractional CMO service, right? So you don't have to, if you companies that needed a marketing executive but couldn't afford them, then it's perfect.
Right.
That's where I come in because it's like a part-time executive, right? But then how do I help more people? How do I help the smaller companies and the entrepreneurs who are just getting started? And so it's creating these products down the line. And that's just how it happened to work for me.
I think something because of talking to both of you separately before, knowing that we've all had moments where we've had to pivot in our businesses a little bit, and even if it goes a different direction, like totally off off of anything we've spoke about or done before. For me, it went from complaint free to, the things I'm doing now. And for Tina, I know we had a conversation about talking about health things, which isn't part of, the positive edge that you already talk about. So like, and then Jeremy, you went from Hollywood to now kind of a different business altogether with the
Mhm.
marketing.
Mhm.
So, what has your experience been for both of you? Like, and Tina, are you pursuing the other? I guess I brought it up without asking, but like, are you pursuing that other avenue?
I am
Good,
deeply immersed in it right now. I'm taking a year-long training on
good.
this particular terrain approach, and really, I have to say it's been, oh my gosh, you know how it's like before I thought I was excited about what I was talking about and I thought it was really impactful and I loved it. And now it just feels like it's up a notch, and it's just like it just makes everything more fun, more interesting. And I feel like all the little dots and data points of everything that's happened in my life, from my biotech background and all my science background and my speaking and my positive psychology, it's like all these dots are now coming together in this new way. And it just, yeah, it's the enthusiasm is even easier to tap into.
Yeah, well, and because it's a very personal story then too, which I think lends to it. You know? So it's you're more passionate about seeing it through and helping other people that, have gone through similar things. So for you, Jeremy, then of course, moving from Hollywood to what you're doing now, like how has that journey been for you then?
Um, it was scary. It was it was not
Yes.
easy. I am at one point I walked away from a dream job, right? What people would consider a dream job, right? I was global creative director for this big company, flying around the world, first class, meeting with directors, going out to the Harry Potter set and meeting George Lucas and doing all these amazing things, right? Making great money. It was awesome. But there was a lack of fulfillment in there for me,
Mhm.
and the company was great. It had nothing to do with the company.
Right.
And they then happened to be closing the division in LA after we did this huge expansion. Like we went from 50 people in LA to 3,500 people worldwide in 4 different countries. And then we were closing LA, and they offered to relocate me to Vancouver. And I was like, no, I'm gonna pass. And I decided to buy this print and marketing business in my area. And I was getting married. So I did this like my first year of marriage. We bought this
No
business,
stress.
no stress.
No
And
stress.
then we also had our first child during this time too. Um, but I had no idea what I didn't know. I had
Yeah.
all this confidence of like, hey, I was at the table, this big global company. I can turn around, this mom and pop print and marketing shop in the community, and it almost just crushed us. We ran out of money. We were like, I couldn't. The credit cards were full. I borrowed money from the
Wow.
bank. I borrowed money from the family, and ran out of money again. And it got to the point where we couldn't eat out. I had no idea how we were going to pay rent at the beginning of the month. It was really, really, really challenging.
Yeah.
But it was podcasts, right? It was like I started listening to podcasts, and then I got joined a coaching group, and then went to masterminds, and I started learning, about proven frameworks and strategies and things that people have done. And I don't mean like they did it once, because there's a lot of people out there like, oh, I did this and I made $1 million, and then they're selling that. And I mean like time and time again.
Right.
But I pulled myself out of it. So it took to get to where my level of success before. It took like 8 years, right? And this time I just crashed into the valley of despair. But it was like 18 months I was able to figure it out and climb back on top. And then that particular business was never going to produce the income that I needed. But I then started doing other streams of revenue. I was able to get that business to be 80% passive, right? It started working for me. And then I was able to then start consulting again. And I picked up a couple of movie gigs and produced the 3D on a couple of things. And then I came out of it. So the journey was not easy. It's another reason why I come and do these things, to share, because there's certain bits of information that we shouldn't have to discover like that. We shouldn't have to be
Mhm.
struggling so hard to find those answers to eventually, it should just be common knowledge, but they don't teach you this stuff in school, right? And so we just got to get it out there. We got to, because it comes down to trial and error, right? Like
Yeah.
that's all it really was. If I break it all the way down, I would be like, oh, I've got a problem. I got to figure this out. And it was trial and error until I figured that out. And then I went to the next step. I'm like, oh, wait, I got to figure this out and this out and this out. And I didn't even know the path, right? Like that's why I talk, it's like so much about having like a client roadmap and what are these steps along the way so that I
Yeah.
even know where to go. So when I hit that block, I can get through it quicker with proven tools and tactics and then move on to the next one, right?
Yeah. And I
So
love what
yeah,
you said that some of the information that isn't out there is what's so devastating for people because it is those, we talk about the highs all the time and, oh, I got success. And like you said, people maybe have become millionaires by doing something once. And like, I don't think that's the norm. I think it's
no,
normal more to hit the peaks and the valleys. And it's in the valleys when we need more of the teaching of
yeah,
how to come out of that.
yeah.
It's easy
And
to
if
say,
you,
oh, you're on a high, this is
yeah,
great. you know, it's funny because I was watching Tina like nod her head when you were talking about how, you know, because I do know her background and what she's building and stuff. Like there's so much information that's, takes one person to put all these pieces together. And so then we're able to share that. We're saving somebody else all that work on the back
yeah,
end.
yeah,
So what both of you are doing is so incredibly important because I've been there too. And I've been at the point where, my husband's looking at me like, we're how much money in debt because of that thing that you did? I'm like, "Ugh," and it's devastating and it's almost humiliating to ourselves like, "Oh my god, I just really bombed this thing and it's just
yeah,
awful and how do I climb out of it?" But that's what the important thing is climbing out of it and
yeah,
sharing that,
yeah,
so yeah. And I feel like you can't teach that unless you've gone through it.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, sometimes if it's not working for you, it's working on you, right? And then we go
Yeah.
through it and we come out better we come out the other side better.
Yeah, and like Tina, like you were saying too, and everything you've done has led to this moment of what you're working on now, and like you said, there's research that, has never been, you know, mainstream, so how
Yeah.
challenging has that been?
Yeah, and I think about how well, and to step back just real quick, it's like I know when I left my corporate job and decided I was going to do this business thing, this speaking thing, I don't know how people get through it. I had already been learning positive psychology, and so I had these tools, and I was using them all the time, and I was still stressed. And I'm like, oh my gosh, so I love to just be able to share that story. Like, yeah, change, uncertainty, fear, our brains just naturally assume the worst. And how can we get better at just acknowledging that, working with that, and figuring it out? But yeah, and now to be seeing how these various pieces in my life are coming together. And I really think, like you were saying, Jeremy, it's like you struggle, you learn from that, but it's the persistence. You have to believe in
Mm,
yourself and what you want to do enough to keep going, even when it gets so discouraging, you just want to lay on the floor and cry, right?
yeah,
When,
Yeah.
like you say, when it's so humiliating. But if you have something that is important enough to you and you know that people need it, that's what keeps you going. You just know eventually. I mean, how many times do you hear? I was just at a Tony Robbins event, and this woman was talking about how many times she heard no, like hundreds of times. It took her 6 years. Then eventually she had this cosmetic business she built in her living room. She sold to L'Oreal for over $1 billion. It's like, but she
Wow.
she just knew, she believed in what she was doing.
Yeah. And it's okay to pick up, like you said, you did those, film things in between, Jeremy, like doing these 3D projects. It's okay to take a couple of steps back as long as you're not going too far back where you can't align back up with what you're doing because sometimes, I mean, we all have electric bills. That stuff's got to get
mhm,
paid. And so it can really take a beating on your character. Sometimes you're like, well, no, I just really have to do this thing. I told everyone I was going to do it. And now I have to go get a part-time job to make ends meet. But it's okay because you got to pay your bills.
yeah. I think that's really it, right? It's okay.
Yeah.
I believe so much in what Tina's talking about in terms of having, you got to have this optimistic viewpoint. You got to you got to believe, and you got to have courage, right? It's taking
Yeah.
action when you're scared and you're freaked out. And I used to have this thing, I later called it my fetal 15, and it's where I would lay in bed in the fetal position for 15 minutes every morning, wishing I didn't have to like go into the business and that I could quit or call in sick. And like, you just can't do it. And then you got to get up and keep going. Um, but we have to have that mindset. Mindset is huge. Mindset
Yeah.
is more than 50% of it. It's probably 80 or 90% of it, right? And
Yeah.
having the mindset to get through and push through and finding ways. We have to find ways. We have to have ways to take care of ourselves during that time when we're stressed out, when we're tired, we're
Yeah.
full of fear. You know, I know if I start thinking that way, if my brain's going that way, I have to stop. I have to stop. I have to go take a
Mm.
walk. I have to meditate. I need to do something to get my head right and then come back and do it. You know, it's like grocery shopping when you're hungry. You make bad decisions, you know. When you're trying to run a business and you're full of fear, you're going to make bad decisions,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Uh,
I want to jump on that because that is, to me, that is so important. Even with my teenager, it's like I try to say, when you're upset, when you're stressed, when you're discouraged, don't make decisions, right? Don't even think about stuff. Just give yourself
Mm-hmm.
permission to just come back to whatever you're trying to do when you're, you know, in a better state of mind, because everything just feels horrible, you know, and
Yeah.
it's no place to try to determine your future, right? When you're in this state. So just give
Yeah.
yourself permission to wait.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It all comes back to it's okay, right? It's okay. And there's so many experts out there, right? Like I love that there's so much knowledge and we can find so much and we can hear people, but it doesn't mean we have to do it that way,
Right.
exactly how they said it. And if you don't do it this way, you're going to be a failure. You're going to do it the way that works for you, that works best for you. And it's okay. Everything's going to be okay as long as like you believe in yourself and you believe in what you're doing and you keep going and you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. And we all want everything so instantly right now, right?
Yeah.
It's like instant, instant, instant. And really we just all just need to chill and live and just go, right? And flow forward.
Well,
I
it's
like that. I might have to
interesting.
make a t-shirt out of that. It's flow
You
forward. I
should.
like that.
The Fetal 15, I want that t-shirt. Um, it's interesting because, like, mindset when we're talking about in business and all that, like, it's so important, but what's fascinating to me is we have to learn to, like, block out those little voices out there from people who aren't in it like we are, because I've heard so many times, I've in the background, people saying, "That's just toxic positivity right there. You're telling yourself to believe in yourself when" I'm like, "Oh," like, that just, like, ugh, just gets me, like, right here. I just wanna, like, scream. It's like, I'm doing what I need to do to make myself, succeed and get through something that's difficult. And if it's me being more positive and choosing not to see I can still feel all the feels and do what I gotta do, but not to wait in it for days and weeks and
Mhm.
months. That's what I need to do. And I've heard people like, "Oh, that's toxic positivity." I'm like, "I'm not saying everything is sunshine and rainbows. That's not what I'm doing." You know? So,
Yeah.
trying to block out some of those voices of people who aren't in it or what you're doing, to me, is the hardest part. Friends and
The
family.
haters have the loudest voice, right? It's so easy
Yeah.
to hate and say negative things.
Yep.
It's hard to be good and to be positive.
Yeah, it's such a huge struggle in business, and then when you're out there marketing yourself and putting yourself out there, to me, I feel like if you don't have haters, you haven't made it yet.
You just got to put an ad on Facebook where you're talking, and something will come up. Man, they
Oh,
just come
yeah.
out of the woodwork.
Yeah,
Or if you don't have haters, that means you're not being authentically you, right? I mean, if you're
true.
just trying to please everybody and make everybody happy, which I
Right.
have some people pleaser in me, right? But to just
Me too.
really be authentically you, that shouldn't make everybody happy.
Yeah.
That's true.
You can't. You
Mm.
can't do it. But I'm
Yeah,
the same way.
yeah,
I'm with you guys. Yeah.
yeah. No, especially through the pandemic, I found myself because of the where the world was at, I'm like, "You know what? Life's too short. I am just gonna be me." And so I let my goofy, silly side come out, and people now see, like, my ridiculous TikToks that I make, and people are like, "Oh my god, that's hilarious," but I never would have done that. Pre-pandemic, I would have been too afraid people would have judged me and
Hmm.
not liked me because of my sense of humor. And now that was one blessing that came out of this pandemic, because letting that go and being able to be myself and just,
That's
that
wonderful.
to me has brought more of my people in. So the people who love that truly are my people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And those that don't connect with you are going somewhere else. as they
Yeah.
should, because it would just end up, creating bumps down the road, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to sell to people that we don't connect with, right? There's more than enough out there for everybody.
Right. Well, and some people just aren't gonna like us. So, funny
Hmm.
story, um, Will Bowen has a program called Complaint Free Life, and every Wednesday it's a Facebook group that people subscribe to, and every Wednesday there Will or myself or his daughter Leah would go live inside of this group, and we run the 21-day complaint free challenge inside of this group, and so being that I'm the director of trainers, Will's like, "Okay, make sure you're posting every day and making sure, set a great example for everyone in the group." And this one mind you, the name of the group is Complaint Free Life, right? We're trying to build this positive at and she wrote on my post and said, "I am just sick of seeing your face every day." Just like, ouch. Ouch.
I
I'm
think she might
like,
be in the wrong group.
yeah, I was just like, I'm like, "I'm sorry." I'm just trying to, you know, so it really took me back. So I'm like, holy crap, but there's people in that world and like I would that as silly as it seems, like, I didn't wanna post the next day because I was
Yeah,
afraid she was gonna be out of all the people that are in this group, that one person made me feel like, it's gonna be hard to post today because 'cause I'm afraid she's gonna judge me
yeah,
or say
yeah.
something sarcastic."
It's interesting. Before I started posting, and when I didn't want to put myself out there, whenever I thought about it, I always thought about the same like 4 or 5 people out in the world that were going to judge me, and they're not even part of my inner circle, and we don't even get together, and like we're like acquaintances from the past. And for whatever reason, I just knew that it would rub them the wrong way, and I
Yeah,
didn't want to do it because I was afraid of what they might think, and it doesn't matter what they think, right? And
right.
and I don't wish them any harm or anything bad, like, but it's just that thing, in my head was stopping me, and that's bad. But once you start, right, and you get past it, it gets easier, and you keep going.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and that comes down to, like Tina was talking about that positive psychology, you know, and that is just once you grasp it and once you're able to, really make it part of who you are and not let those people affect you, I mean, you're golden. Maybe even the golden octopillar.
Yeah, golden octopillar.
I love that name.
But
Yeah,
even once you get good at it, like you're still gonna have days, right,
yeah,
where you're
Yeah.
tired or you're hungry, and it's gonna penetrate, right? And those are the
yeah,
times when you gotta like, okay, I need to step away, I need to go take care of myself, right? I need to
Yeah.
re-energize and
yeah.
whatnot.
It never goes away, right? Because we're hardwired to want to be liked. We're hardwired, some of us more than others, right? But
Right.
our brain is constantly saying, "Oh, if they don't like you, that's bad," or if these people judge you, that's bad, and that's what we focus on way more than the people who
Hmm.
love us, because those one or two people who don't love us, that's what our brain focuses on, and to just acknowledge that and then have that conversation with ourselves about
Yeah,
reminding ourselves that that's just normal and that's
Right.
okay. But yeah,
yeah.
Right. Well, we're just about to the end of the show, and I want to keep Jeremy on just for a little bit longer because he has an offer when we're done here. I want to talk to the audience about. But Tina, can you tell everyone where they can find you and learn more about you?
yeah, please check me out at thepositiveedge.net, net. And I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn, but I just, check out my website. I have so many free resources, so many links to other books and websites and free tips. So yeah, please check that out and use whatever you can, pass on whatever you can. I want more of us to be a positivity catalyst. Right now, more than ever, we need to
Yes.
spread this and
Yeah.
just, pass it on.
Yeah, and I would love to have you back on next month, Tina, because we're talking about mindset. So
Mm,
the whole month of December is all around mindset. So I'd love to have you come back on again, and we can talk more about that too. So
sure.
um, yeah, but Tina, I'm going to say goodbye, and hopefully we can talk to you again next month. And Jeremy, if you can stick around a little bit longer,
Sure.
and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So thanks again, Tina.
All right. Nice to meet you, Jeremy. Good to see
Yeah,
you,
nice to meet
Wendy.
you.
All right,
Bye.
bye, Jeremy. Okay. So I want to talk a bit about what's coming up for you now because,
Yeah.
you're offering some great things that we were talking about. And so if you just want to talk a little bit about, what's going on in your world now and what you have to offer.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, actually, starting next week, so on Monday, I have what's called an Extreme Business Makeover, and it's where we get in to really help businesses that want to grow, whether they're small, and they're starting out and they're trying to figure out and try to grow from nothing, or they're big and they're doing $1 million a year and they want to grow more, right? Because even successful companies want to be more successful. What we find is that that the ones that grow easily or more faster, they have, a specific framework, right? So I've got a proven framework that I've taken from Hollywood. So I've got my 20 something years in Hollywood that I've had, but I also teamed up with Digital Marketer as a certified partner with them so that I could source everything, because I know that for me, I've got my 20 years and I could say, oh yeah, like this has worked and that's worked and we can sample Hollywood. But I want to make sure that I always have some proven tool or tactic to help my clients. And so I know that, and just like you, right? Like we can come up with an idea. We can say, oh, I bet we
Right,
can try this, or we should try this, or we should try that. But I don't want it to be that just something that I created out of thin air now, because there's just too much information, right? And so
right,
that's where the digital marketer side comes out. In case there's a hole, I now have a whole team. Like they've trained over 126,000 marketers, right? And teams of all sizes. So to be able to pluck from that and offer that as well, it's totally complete, right? And
wow,
so next week it's about growth. And really now that because of where we're at in the year, hit the ground running for next year. To let's implement this. Let's get this embedded into our companies so that when we start next year, it's already running, it's already operating, right? And
right,
so what it is a proven framework, and I can go over it a little bit. It's just we talked about, even on this show right now, we talked about having a client roadmap, right? And we need to have
mm,
these clear stages from awareness to them, they kind of exit out, like they bought you, you provided value, but now they're promoting your business, right? And all the steps along the way. So there's 8 key things there. And then we have the actual metrics, right, that tie into those 8 steps. And so when we look at it, and we talked about this like live living document that we're updating or our team is updating, and when we see a problematic spot, right, what do we do? And that's where the proven tools and tactics come in, right? And so when we
right,
look at this, you could say, oh, of those 8 stages, do I need to double my sales? Do I need to double all of them? Well, no, that would be like 256 times growth, which is cool. But, and over time, I'm sure we can get there, but let's keeping the numbers more grounded in reality. What if we just doubled one of those areas? What if because on day one, we're going to do an audit on your marketing and your sales strategy, your marketing and your growth strategy. And that'll tell us right away where things are strong and where things are weak, right? And then we put this roadmap into place, we put in the metrics, and then we say, okay, here, what if we focus here? And it may not be we're going to double this area, but what if we do 50% here and 50% there, or 50% here, 25 and 25, or 10% everywhere? Well, that would give us 80, 15% everywhere, right? But that's the goal. And so it's next week, it's 1 to 2 hours a day, and really the training is an hour. So it's a training is 1 hour a day. But what I've done is I've put in an extra hour every day. Well, I'll go into the Zoom room, because it's in a Zoom we're working together, where it's for Q&A and coaching and making sure that there's no questions, everybody's able to execute, and that really at the end of the 5 days, you are on the path to doubling your sales, right? And that's the goal right there.
yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. So, I think there's only one day that I can't join, but I am so in and looking forward to this because we had talked prior to the show and all that, and you kinda showed me, like, the 8 different things, and
Mm-hmm,
it's mind blowing. So for anyone who's watching, I really want you to, kinda take heart in what Jeremy's talking about right now, because there are ways to double your business
mm-hmm.
without you really doubling the work in a way, 'cause the way the roadmap is set out, without giving it away, it's kinda brilliant, and it's
You're
things
gonna
that I
end up
had
working
never thought
less.
of. Yeah,
Yeah,
you end up working less,
you're
and
gonna
you
end up
just
working less.
learn what works and what doesn't, and by, having somebody like Jeremy, like you, to talk us through how to get to those points and how to make it happen. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so
Yeah, and I've thrown in some bonuses, like that adding the extra time is a bonus. There's also a meet and greet on Sunday. I want to get to know people and know their businesses so that I can make their business part of the experience, right? Because this isn't,
Right,
I'm not, I want to do this on a regular basis, but I don't want it to be just rinse and repeat. It needs to be custom to the people. Another one of
yeah,
the bonuses is you get a couple extra tickets, right? So that you can share them, you can sell them, you can split the price. It's super cheap to anyways.
yeah.
Do I share the price now, or do we just
Sure,
let people
yeah,
go
go
and
for it,
check
yeah,
it
whatever
out?
you wanna share, yeah,
It's 247.
yeah,
But it's like, it's worth thousands and thousands. I'm making sure
yeah,
that every single day you're getting more than the price of admission, right? And
It's one
this
of those
is
deals, it's a no-brainer deal. That's why I love deal
right.
when you see a price, you're like, "Pff, done." Like, I'm in.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
that's a
yeah,
no-brainer price
exactly.
because if anyone who's an entrepreneur has looked at programs like this, they're definitely charging more, but
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
You can charge a ton for this. There's probably people out there like putting together something like this pre-recorded and selling it for like $1,000, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this
Maybe that's what
it's
I'll do next year. No, just kidding.
right, get in now. Isn't that part of the
Right.
marketing thing of get in now
That's right.
while
Yeah.
supplies
It'll
last, you
never
know?
be this cheap ever, ever, ever again.
Yes.
But
You gotta do all
this is
that.
how I can help more people, right? This is how,
Yeah.
I'm setting this up because, I set this goal of helping double the sales of 1,000 businesses in 5 years without actually knowing how I'm going to get it done, right? I'm like, I want to come up with a goal that is so big that I got to figure out and I got to think differently to do it, right? And
Right.
so that's what I did.
Well, and I think by you doing that, you're challenging business owners to kind of do the same. Like, okay, how can I do this? Well, guess what? There's a program for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so and I want to put in the comments here too. Like, so what's the link where they can find out more, where they can learn more about this offer that you have?
Yeah. So it's www.goldenoctopillar.com.
Well, and, I used to be a transcriptionist and it takes me forever to type when I'm live.
That's all right. And that's slash EBM, that's Extreme Business Makeover,
Mhm.
and then dash slam.
Awesome. Make sure that that's right. Golden Octopillar. Did I spell that right?
Octo pillar,
Octopillar. See, I knew I was gonna
OCTO.
so everyone
Yeah.
delete that. I can even delete that. I don't wanna star that. Get that out of there. So everyone, I don't know how to delete comments on here, so we're just gonna have to go with it. So let's try that again. That's why I wanted to check
Yeah,
it.
that's all
Well
right.
then, makes sense too. Octopus, Octopillar.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, and when we were talking, you put it together that there was like the 8 stages in the customer roadmap, and it was like octo, like the eight, which was is just
right.
pure coincidence. Yeah.
I'm like, how did I thought that was part of the strategy.
Yeah, no,
So
it's just another. It's the stars aligning.
right. I'll put that on the screen here. So
There we
they
go.
get the right one that they're looking at. So,
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah, so it's Monday. Well, starting Sunday is the meet and greet, and then
yeah.
Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday. Yeah, yeah,
Perfect.
yeah.
And
And
then
it's
you're
yeah, yeah. And the times are on there. I want to say it's 11 to 1 Pacific time, I think, but definitely check it out on the website
okay.
and confirm that. Yeah. And if
Yeah. So
anybody
love.
has any questions, they can tag me in the comments here. They can DM me on Facebook. I'm here. I'm approachable. You can talk to me. I'm here to help. So,
Yeah, it looks like we have a mutual friend, Valerie Fisher, because she was commenting on
oh,
here.
yep.
It,
I've been on Valerie's show. Hi, Valerie.
awesome, awesome. I love Valerie. She's one of my experts in my expert emporium. So
Okay.
absolutely love her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's brilliant with marketing. She does the brain science selling and stuff. So quick little plug for
Hmm.
Valerie. But yeah, visit goldenoctopillar.com/EBM dash slam
There it is.
to check it out. Otherwise, like Jeremy said, reach out to him, reach out to me. I can get you connected, make an introduction if someone's a little intimidated by, someone who's been in Hollywood, because I'm sure that happens, you
Yeah,
know.
it shouldn't though. I'm just a guy. I'm a family guy. I love my kids and hanging out, and that's the other kind of benefit of like we were talking about like COVID and things changed and all these
Yeah,
virtual events is I'm not flying all over the place, right? I'm not driving all over the place, and
right.
I get to have lunch with my kids and hang out with the family. I love it.
Well, I think it makes people, more approachable. It allows like small shows like mine to get you on here and have this great value for my audience to now
Mhm.
be able to connect with you and hopefully join this program because I think I'm excited about it. So I'm hoping to see some of my audience join as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So yeah, any other advice you'd like to give before we sign off?
I could close it out with the half-built bridges, right? We talked about you mentioned like all the
Yeah.
squirrels earlier, and on Vince's show talking about the shiny objects, and I think there's all kinds of things to take away all the time, right? And all the shows, and we've talked about lots of things, but the most important thing that I think for people to do out there is just finish your course. Finish one course until you hit that point. And by course, I don't mean like my course. I mean like finish one path. Finish building the bridge. Like you're here and you're trying to get here. You're missing something. You're listening to shows like this. You're learning. You're educating yourself. You're trying to grow. and because you're trying to get from point A to point B and you're building a bridge to get there. But what happens is we start hearing all these exciting things because information is just flying around, and we build our bridge halfway and maybe it doesn't work right away and we get frustrated, or then we hear something else that sounds really cool and then we stop and we start building this other bridge and we end up with a bunch of half built bridges. And that's not good. We need to finish one bridge. We need to focus until that bridge is done, and then we build the next bridge, and then we build the next bridge. And I think we'll get much further, much faster if we do that.
Yeah, perfect. Because that's exactly the advice I have to give to myself every day when I wake up. Because otherwise I'm rearing to build a new bridge and start something new. So,
Right.
but thank you so much. I so much appreciate your time and coming
Yeah.
on the
Thank
show,
you for
Jeremy.
having me on. Yeah, I really appreciate it. This has been awesome. This is really cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Everyone else, please join me again next Monday, every Monday at 5:15 Central Standard Time. And next week we start with mindset in the month of December. So we'll see you then, everyone. Bye.